My name is Lindsay Harper. I'm 36 years old, and I work as a registered nurse in Asheville, North Carolina. If I'm honest, my greatest strength has always been my heart, but it's also my greatest flaw. I've always been too trusting. I believed in love. I believed in family. I believed that if you worked hard and played fair, life would take care of you. I was wrong, because when my parents divorced, they didn't just split their marriage. They split my life in two. They reached into the one thing I had built for myself, my savings account, and drained it. Their daughter, their nurse, their only child. And while they thought I would forgive them, move on, and keep playing the dutiful daughter, I gave them a gift they never saw coming. I bought the one thing they loved more than me, their precious vacation home. If you're here listening, please like and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you is not just a story about money. It's about betrayal that cuts deeper than any wound I've ever treated at the hospital. And let me ask you, have you ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you? Have you ever realized that blood doesn't always mean loyalty? Please let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know who's out there tonight because maybe, just maybe, you'll hear your own story and mine. I grew up believing my parents' love was unshakable. My childhood was filled with mountain hikes, Sunday pancakes, and summer trips to Lake Lure, where we stayed in that little cedar vacation home that smelled of pine and sunscreen. Back then, I thought family meant forever. That house especially felt like proof of it, a place where love would always live. But what I didn't know then was that homes can be bought and sold. And families? Sometimes they sell you out too. When I close my eyes and think of my childhood, I don't remember fancy toys or extravagant trips. I remember simplicity, the smell of pancakes on Sunday mornings. My dad taught me how to ride my bike down our quiet neighborhood street. My mom is humming along to old country songs while folding laundry. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor either. We were steady, solid, safe. At least that's how it felt to me. And at the center of so many of my memories was that cedar vacation home in Lake Lure. It wasn't glamorous, not compared to the sprawling cabins other families rented. Nearby, it was small, with creaky wooden floors and mismatched furniture that always smelled faintly of mildew. But to me, it was paradise. Summers were spent swimming in the lake until my fingers pruned, roasting marshmallows by the fire pit, and falling asleep to the sound of crickets outside the screened-in porch. That home felt like proof that no matter what happened in the world, my family would always come back together. Every year, when we pulled into the gravel driveway, my dad would say the same thing. "Well, kiddo, we're home." And every year, I believed him. As I got older, I worked hard to build my own life. Nursing school wasn't easy. Long nights, endless textbooks, clinical rotations that pushed me to my breaking point. But I loved it. I loved caring for people. I loved knowing I could be the person standing steady when someone's whole world was falling apart. My parents were proud, or at least I thought they were. They bragged about me to neighbors, telling everyone their daughter was a nurse, saving lives. But pride doesn't always mean loyalty, and love doesn't always mean protection. Looking back, there were cracks in their marriage long before I noticed. My mom, Catherine, had a sharpness in her voice whenever my dad, Mark, forgot something. My dad spent more time tinkering in the garage than sitting at the dinner table. Arguments simmered under the surface, disguised as playful banter, but I see now they were just waiting to boil over. Still, I trusted them, believed in them, because they were my parents. They were the people I ran to when the world got hard. And maybe that's why their betrayal cut so deep. Because it wasn't just money they took from me. It was the illusion that family could never turn on you. I started saving when I was 22. Every paycheck, no matter how small, I tucked something away, even if it was just $50. I skipped vacations, packed lunches, and worked extra shifts at the hospital. Slowly, steadily, I built a little safety net. By the time I was 36, I had saved nearly $60,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. It was proof of my discipline, my sacrifice, my independence, and it was the money I thought would help me finally buy my own little house. Not glamorous, not big, but something I could call my own. But as my savings grew, my parents' marriage unraveled. I watched them go from icy silence at the dinner table to shouting matches that rattled the walls. Counseling didn't help. Vacations didn't help. And before long, the word divorce started creeping into their conversations like a shadow. I told myself it was their problem, not mine. That no matter what happened between them, I'd stay their daughter, loved and protected. But I didn't know then that their war would spill into my life, that their greed, their bitterness, would swallow up everything I had worked for, and that the home that once felt like the heart of our family would become the very weapon I used to take my revenge. Because while they were tearing each other apart, they found one thing to agree on. Something they could both take from me, something I never thought they would touch. My savings. Divorce is like a sickness. It doesn't just eat away at the people directly involved. It spreads, infecting everyone around it. And in my parents' case, I was the collateral damage. At first, the signs were subtle. My mom would call me late at night, venting about my dad, her voice sharp and bitter. "Lindsay," she sighed once, "your father doesn't understand responsibility. He spends money like water." I don't know how I put up with him all these years. I tried to comfort her, reminding her of the good times, but she brushed me off. "You'll see, sweetheart. He's going to drag us all down." Then, a week later, my dad called. "Your mother's out of control," he muttered, his voice low as if she might overhear from miles away. "She's talking about lawyers, about splitting everything. She'll take me for every dime if she can." I became their sounding board, their referee, their therapist. And slowly, without me realizing, I was being pulled into a war that wasn't mine. At first, I thought it was just venting, just the messiness of divorce. But then the questions started. "How much do you have saved, honey?" my mom asked casually one afternoon, as if she were asking about the weather. I blinked. "Why?" "Oh, nothing," she said too quickly, forcing a laugh. "Just wondering if you're doing okay." I brushed it off, but a seed of unease settled in my chest. My dad wasn't much better. One night, while we were eating takeout in his half-empty apartment, he leaned across the table. "You've always been smart with money, Linz, not like your mother. Tell me, how much have you tucked away?" I hesitated. "Enough to feel secure." He smirked. "Good? Good girl." But there was a glint in his eyes I didn't recognize. Not pride, not relief. Something else. Something calculating. Then came the fights over the vacation home. That cedar cabin, the one that had once been our sanctuary, turned into their battleground. My mom insisted she deserved it because she had maintained it all these years. My dad claimed it was his escape, his peace, his right. I tried to reason with them. "It's just a house," I said gently, my voice breaking. "Isn't family more important than a property line?" They both turned on me. "Easy for you to say," my mom snapped. "You don't understand what's at stake," my dad added, shaking his head. And for the first time in my life, I realized something chilling. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was a resource, a pawn. The tension escalated in ways I couldn't ignore. One afternoon, I went to grab dinner with my mom. Halfway through the meal, she leaned in, her tone deceptively sweet. "You know, Lindsay, if you really loved your parents, you'd help us. Just a little. Just until this divorce settles." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. "Help you how?" She smiled tightly. "You've got savings. We know you do. We just need a loan. Temporary." My stomach twisted. "Mom, That's my future. That's my house fund. Her expression hardened. Don't be selfish. Family comes first. Days later, my dad cornered me too. I heard your mom asked you for help, he said bitterly. Don't you dare give her a dime. She'll bleed. You dry. If you're going to help anyone, help me. I'll pay you back, I swear. I stared at him, speechless. My father, the man who taught me how to ride a bike, was begging me for money like a stranger. I told him no. I told them both no. But saying no to desperate people? It only makes them hungrier. Looking back, I realize those were the early warning signs. The red flags are waving in my face. My parents weren't just divorcing each other. They were divorcing me too, severing the bond of trust we had built my entire life. And I didn't know it then, but the worst was yet to come. Because soon I'd wake up and find the account I had spent 14 years building empty. It happened on a Wednesday morning, gray and drizzly, the kind of day where everything feels heavier than it should. I had just finished a night shift at the hospital, exhausted, running on caffeine and stubbornness. I stopped at the bank, like I always did on payday. I had this ritual: deposit my check, glance at my balance, smile at the little number I had built through years of sacrifice, my safety net, my future. But that morning, when the teller handed me the receipt, my smile rose, balance $247.30. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Surely it was a mistake. I had nearly $60,000 saved. I had tracked every cent. It couldn't be right. Excuse me, I said, my voice trembling. This isn't correct. Can you check again? The teller frowned, politely, typing on her keyboard. Then she glanced at me, her expression shifting. There were recent withdrawals, Ms. Harper. Large ones. Multiple transfers. My chest tightened. What transfers? She hesitated, lowering her voice. Joint account access. And in that moment, the world tilted. Because I realized what had happened. My parents. The people who had brought me into this world. The people who told me family comes first. They had taken my money. It wasn't just gone. It had been funneled into their war chest for the divorce. Lawyer fees, property disputes, their endless battle over who got to claim victory, and they had used me as the battlefield. I stumbled out of the bank in a daze, rain soaking my scrubs. My hands shook as I dialed my mom's number. She answered on the second ring. Lindsay, hi, sweetheart. Where's my money? I whispered, my voice breaking. Silence. Then a sigh. Honey, we needed it. Just for now. You'll understand. One day, my knees nearly buckled. You took it? Without even asking me? Her voice sharpened. Don't be dramatic. We're your parents. We've supported you your whole life. The least you can do is support us when we need it. I couldn't breathe. I hung up. Seconds later, my dad called. His voice was calm, almost smug. Linz, I know you're upset, but this is temporary. When the divorce is finalized, you'll get it back. We're just reallocating, okay? Reallocating? I choked out. Dad, you drained my entire life savings. 14 years of work, gone. Don't exaggerate. You'll be fine. You have a good job. You'll make it back. That was the moment something inside me cracked. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot, staring at the rain sliding down the windshield. My entire body shook with anger, grief, and disbelief. How could they? How could the two people I trusted most strip me bare and call it support? I thought of every double shift I'd worked, every weekend I spent at the hospital while my friends were out living their lives. I thought of the nights I skipped dinner to pay off student loans faster. I thought of the times I told myself it would all be worth it when I finally had my own home. And now it was all gone, stolen, by my own parents. The days that followed were a blur of numbness. I went through the motions at work, plastering on a smile for patience, but inside, I was hollow. When I confronted them face to face, they didn't even flinch. My mom crossed her arms. "Lindsay, you'll survive. You don't have children. You don't have a mortgage. We needed it more than you did." My dad added, "Don't be selfish. This divorce is tearing us apart. You should be helping us, not complaining." I stared at them, my voice trembling. "I trusted you, and you robbed me." They looked at me like I was the problem, like I was ungrateful. And that's when the last of my illusions crumbled, because betrayal from a stranger hurts. But betrayal from your parents? It cuts deeper than any knife. That day, I stopped being their daughter. I became their opponent. And if they thought they could steal my future without consequence, they had no idea who they had just created. The night after I confronted my parents, I sat on the floor of my apartment with bills spread out around me like fallen leaves. My savings account, the one thing that made me feel secure, the one thing I thought no one could touch, was gone. I kept staring at the numbers: rent, utilities, groceries, all the mundane realities of life, now heavier than ever. My chest ached. My hands shook. I had faced trauma before. I'd held dying patients' hands, comforted families through their darkest hours. But this felt different. This was a wound no bandage could cover, because it wasn't just money they stole. It was my future, my trust, my identity. I didn't sleep for days. At the hospital, I moved like a ghost, smiling at patients, charting notes, answering calls. But inside, I was drowning. During my break one night, I sat in the staff lounge, staring at the vending machine like it might have answers. My coworker, Dana, sat down beside me. "You okay, Linz?" she asked gently. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But she didn't buy it. Nurses can always tell when someone's lying. She squeezed my shoulder. "Don't let anyone dim your light. You've worked too hard for it." Her words hit me like a spark in the dark. At home, I found myself replaying my parents' voices over and over. "You'll survive. Don't be selfish. We needed it more than you did." Each phrase carved deeper into me. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg them to see me not as a bank account, but as their daughter. But instead, I sat in silence. And in that silence, something shifted. The tears stopped. The pleading stopped. The begging stopped. And in its place came fire. One night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection. My eyes were bloodshot, my hair messy, my face pale. I barely recognized myself. And then I whispered, "Enough." I repeated it, louder this time. Enough. Enough of being the good daughter. Enough of being guilt-tripped. Enough of being robbed and told to smile through it. They had taken everything from me. But in doing so, they had freed me too. Freed me from the illusion that family meant loyalty. Freed me from the role of the obedient, trusting daughter. The breaking point came a week later, when my parents called to check in. My mom's voice was syrupy sweet. "Honey, you're not still upset, are you? You know we'll make it right eventually." My dad chimed in. "Be patient, Linz. We'll figure it out once the dust settles. In the meantime, just keep your head down and work hard. You're good at that." Their words hit me like gasoline on a fire. I realized in that moment, they weren't sorry. They weren't guilty. They didn't even see it as betrayal. To them, I was just a resource, a well they could draw from whenever their lives fell apart. And I decided then, I would never let them take from me again. Breaking points are dangerous. They either destroy you or transform you. Mine transformed me. That night, I pulled out a blank journal and wrote one word at the top of the page. Revenge. Not in the petty sense. Not screaming matches or slammed doors. No, I wanted something bigger, smarter, lasting. If they valued money and property more than their own daughter, then that's where I would strike. And in the distance, I could already see the outline of my weapon, that cedar vacation home. The one they fought over like it was their crown jewel. They wanted it. They bled each other for it. They loved it more than me. So what better way to remind them who they underestimated than to take it for? Myself? I closed the journal, my heart pounding, my hands steady for the first time in weeks. They thought they had won. They thought they had broken me. But all they had done was teach me how to fight. And soon they would learn that the daughter they dismissed was the woman who would outsmart them all. Revenge doesn't happen in an instant. It's not fire, not screaming, not slamming doors. It's patience. It's silence. It's the quiet gathering of power until the moment comes to strike. And that's exactly what I decided to do. I started with research. During my lunch breaks at the hospital, while other nurses scrolled through TikTok or cat videos, I was digging through property records. I wanted to know everything about that cedar vacation home. Whose name was on the deed? How much was left? On the mortgage? What it had been appraised for during the divorce? Piece by piece, I built a picture. And what I found made me almost laugh. The house wasn't fully paid off. My parents were drowning in debt from lawyers, and neither of them could afford to keep it. Their precious family treasure was on the chopping block, set to be listed for sale once the divorce was finalized. They had fought for it, clawed at each other for it, and now they'd both lose it. Unless someone else stepped in. Unless I stepped in. But wanting the house and buying it were two very different things, especially since my savings had been gutted. So I built a plan. First, I met with a financial advisor, someone I trusted, not connected to my parents in any way. I laid everything out. My salary, my debts, what little I had left in my account. He leaned back, tapping his pen. "It's not impossible," he said slowly. "It'll take discipline, creativity. But if you're serious..." I leaned forward, my voice steady. "I'm serious." Next came the grind. I picked up every extra shift the hospital would give me. 12-hour nights, doubles on weekends, back-to-back rotations that left my feet blistered and my voice hoarse. Sold things I didn't need, furniture, old jewelry, even some of my nursing textbooks. I started tutoring nursing students on the side, charging just enough to add to my stash without burning out completely. And slowly, steadily, the number in my account began to climb again. Meanwhile, I played the role of the dutiful daughter to perfection. When my mom called, I listened patiently to her complaints about the divorce. When my dad ranted, I nodded along, making sympathetic noises. Neither of them suspected a thing. They thought I had moved on, accepted my loss, and gone back to being their compliant, trusting daughter. But every time they dismissed me, every time they treated me like a child who couldn't possibly understand adult matters, I smiled, quietly to myself. Because I knew what they didn't, that I was watching, waiting, preparing. The turning point came when I discovered the exact timeline. The vacation home would hit the market within 6 months. My parents hadn't told me. They probably assumed I didn't care. But the court documents told the truth. I circled the date in red in my journal, my target, my finish line, and I wrote, beneath it, "This time it's mine." But I didn't just want to buy the house. I wanted them to know. I wanted them to feel the sting of realizing their daughter, the one they dismissed, robbed, underestimated, had beaten them at their own game, so I began laying subtle groundwork. At a family dinner, when my mom sighed about losing the house, I shrugged. "It's just a cabin. Whoever buys it probably won't appreciate it the way you did." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled sweetly. "Nothing. Just saying. Things change." And when my dad grumbled about how unfair it was, I said softly, "Maybe it's for the best. Sometimes letting go is the only option. I watched the frustration flicker in their eyes. They had no idea I was already plotting to take the one thing they still cared about. The months that followed were brutal. I worked until my body screamed for rest, lived leaner than I ever had before, and sacrificed every ounce of free time. But every time exhaustion threatened to break me, I pictured it. The cedar cabin. The lake is shimmering in the sun. The look on my parents' faces when they realized their betrayal had paved the way for my victory. That vision fueled me more than coffee ever could. By the time spring rolled around, I had done it. Between savings, a small inheritance from my grandmother that I had never touched, and a loan I had carefully secured, I had enough to make an offer. The house was officially listed, and I pounced. Sitting in that realtor's office, pen in hand, I felt my pulse hammering in my ears. I signed the papers, my name flowing across the page like fire. Lindsay Harper, owner of the very house my parents once fought over like it was their crown jewel. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. They had stolen my savings. But in doing so, they had taught me how to fight smarter, harder, sharper. And now, I was the one holding the keys. The day I signed the paperwork, the house technically wasn't mine yet. There were still closing steps, inspections, and the inevitable paperwork shuffle. But in my heart, I already held the keys, and that changed everything. For the first time since my parents drained my savings, I felt something I hadn't in months: control, and I wasn't about to waste it. The first small win was silence. I didn't tell my parents a word. Not about the house listing, not about my offer, not about the papers I signed. Instead, I let them believe the world was moving on without them, that their precious cedar cabin would end up in the hands of strangers. At Sunday dinner with my mom, she sighed dramatically over her wine glass. "I can't believe that house will be gone. It's where we raised you, Lindsay. All those summers, all those memories." I stirred my pasta quietly. "Yeah, shame." Her eyes flicked toward me, searching for some sign of sympathy. I gave her nothing, and it drove her mad. My dad was easier to rattle. One afternoon, he called me, frustration dripping from every word. "Can you believe it, Linz? They're really selling the cabin. I worked my whole life for that place." I leaned back on my couch, twirling the phone cord between my fingers. "Well, Dad, maybe the new owners will take better care of it," he sputtered. "What? Who says they'll even appreciate it?" I smiled to myself. "You never know. Sometimes, life surprises you." He hung up grumbling, none the wiser that I was the surprise. The second win was reclaiming my life. I didn't just grind for money anymore. I started living again. After closing my offer, I cut back on shifts. I went hiking in the Blue Ridge. Mountains. I painted again, something I hadn't done since nursing school. I even laughed more at work, and my coworker Dana noticed. "Look at you," she teased one night, tossing me a granola bar. "Glowing like you've got a secret." I chuckled softly. "Maybe I do." And that was the beauty of it. I did. The secret of the century. The third win was psychological warfare. A month later, while the sale was still pending, I drove out to the cabin. The realtor had permitted me to visit. Walking through those creaky floors again felt surreal. The mismatched furniture was gone, but the smell of cedar and pine was still there. The fire pit out back is still circled by old stones, the lake still glittering in the distance. I stood in the living room and whispered, "You're mine now." And I swear, for the first time in years, I felt peace. On my way home, I snapped a picture of the lake, just the lake, no house, and posted it on Facebook with a vague caption, "New beginnings." Within an hour, both of my parents had seen, and my mom texted, "Why were you at the lake?" My dad called, his voice sharp. "What are you up to, Lindsay?" I played dumb. "Just needed some fresh air. It's beautiful out there this time of year." The silence on the line told me Everything. They were unsettled, suspicious, and I loved it. The fourth win came when I overheard them fighting about me. Apparently, my mom was convinced I was up to something, while my dad insisted I was too soft to ever play their game, if I. Only they knew. I sat in my car outside my dad's apartment, the window cracked just enough to hear their voices spilling through the open balcony. "She's not stupid, Mark," my mom snapped. "She's been acting differently. She knows more than she's letting on." He barked back. "Please. Lindsay's a nurse, not a strategist. She doesn't have it in her." I smiled in the darkness. Their underestimation was my favorite weapon. But the biggest small win of all came when the closing finally went through. I remember standing in the lawyer's office, pen in hand, signing the final document. The keys slid across the table into my palm. Cold metal, warm victory. And I didn't just see a house key. I saw justice. I saw revenge. I saw freedom. That night, I drove straight to the cabin. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and breathed, in the smell of cedar like it was oxygen. I curled up on the porch with a blanket, watching the moon reflect across the lake. And for the first time in months, I slept soundly. Not because my parents had been punished yet. Oh no, that was still coming. But because I knew I was ready. The small wins were over. The foundation had been laid. Now it was time for the big reveal. Didn't rush the reveal. No, that would have been too easy. Too merciful. Revenge, I realized, is best served in layers. A slow burn. A rising tension. And then, the explosion. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. My mom called one Friday evening, her voice dripping with self-pity. "They're listing the cabin next week." She sighed dramatically. "Some stranger will buy it. It's so unfair after everything we put into it." I bit my lip to keep from laughing. Some stranger. I played my part. "That's tough, Mom. I know how much you love that place." She sighed again, milking it. "You'll understand when you're older. Some things just slip through your fingers." She had no idea I was holding the keys in my purse at that very moment. I decided the reveal needed an audience. Not just one of them. Both. So, the next weekend, I invited them for coffee. Neutral territory. A little café downtown with big windows and warm lattes. They hadn't sat in the same space since the EI divorce started, but they agreed, probably thinking I wanted to play peacemaker. They arrived stiff and bristling, glaring at each other across the table. "What's this about, Lindsay?" my dad grumbled. I smiled calmly, sipping my latte. "I just thought it was time we had a family talk." For a moment, no one spoke. The tension was thick, like static before a storm. Then, casually, I pulled a set of keys from my purse and dropped them onto the table. The metal clinked against the wood, sharp and loud. They both frowned. My mom reached out, picked them up, and squinted. "These look like—" Her eyes widened. She looked at me, her face paling. "Lindsay." "No." My dad grabbed them, his jaw tightening. "You didn't. I—" Leaned back in my chair, my voice steady. "I did. The cabin's mine now." For a heartbeat, the cafe was silent. Then came the eruption. My mom's voice shook with fury. "How dare you go behind our backs? That was our family home." I tilted my head. Funny. Because when you drained my savings, you didn't ask if that was my future home. My dad slammed his fist on the table. "You don't understand, Lindsay. We fought for that house. We bled for it." I leaned forward, my eyes sharp. "And you lost it. To me. The daughter you dismissed. The daughter you stole from." Their faces told the story better than words ever could. Rage, shock, humiliation. My mom's hands shook as she shoved the keys back toward me. "You've ruined everything. Do you know how this looks? Our own daughter stealing from us?" I slid the keys back into my purse. "No, not stealing. Buying. Legally. Fair and square. While you were too busy tearing each other apart, I rebuilt. What you tried to destroy, they sputtered, but I didn't give them time to recover. I pulled out my phone and swiped to a picture I'd taken the night I first slept in the cabin. Me on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, the lake glowing behind me. I turned the screen toward them. This is my life now. My peace. My home. My... Mom covered her mouth, eyes brimming with tears of rage. My dad just sat back, shaking his head in disbelief. "You'll regret this," he muttered. I smiled coldly. "No, I'll enjoy it." Leaving that cafe was the sweetest walk of my life. My parents sat frozen, their faces pale, their perfect little illusions crumbling in public. And I didn't yell. I didn't throw a tantrum. I didn't slam doors. I simply walked away, keys in my hand, victory in my heart. That night, I drove, straight to the cabin. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and lit a fire in the old stone fireplace. The flames crackled, warm and steady. I curled up on the couch, watching the shadows dance across the cedar walls, and I whispered to the empty room. They thought they could take everything from me, but I took it all back, because revenge isn't always about destroying someone's life. Sometimes it's about reclaiming your own, and as the fire glowed and the lake shimmered under the moonlight, I realized this wasn't just a house. It was proof. Proof that even when family betrays you, even when the people who should protect you strip you bare, you can rise, you can fight back, and you can win. The fallout came fast. The morning after our cafe confrontation, my phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from my mom, missed calls from my dad. Each message is more frantic than the last. "How could you do this to us? We're your parents. Give us the house back, Lindsay. You don't understand what it means." I didn't reply, not once. For years, I had been the daughter who picked up every call, soothed every fight, bent over backwards to make them happy. But now, their chaos was no longer mine to carry. Word spread quickly in our small town. People talk, and property sales are public record. Before long, everyone knew. The cedar cabin on Lake Lure now belonged to me. The same cabin my parents had, torn each other apart for. The same cabin they had drained my savings to protect, and now their daughter had outsmarted them both. At the hospital, co-workers who had heard whispers stopped me in the hallway. "Linz, is it true?" Dana asked, wide-eyed. "You bought your parents' cabin?" I smiled faintly. "Yeah, I did." Her grin was immediate. "Good for you. About time you stopped letting them walk all over you." The support was overwhelming. For the first time, I wasn't just the nurse who picked up extra shifts or the daughter who stayed quiet. I was a woman who had taken back control. My parents, on the other hand, unraveled. My mom tried guilt first. She showed up at my apartment one evening, eyes red, voice trembling. "Lindsay, you're breaking my heart. That cabin. It's where we raised you. It's where we were happy, before everything fell apart." I looked her in the eye, my voice calm. "Then maybe you should have thought of that before you stole from me." Her face crumpled. She turned, and left without another word. My dad tried anger. He called late one night, his voice slurred from too much whiskey. "You think you're smart, huh? Buying that house out from under us? You'll regret it, Linz. You'll regret crossing me." I held the phone steady against my ear. "No, Dad. I regret trusting you, and that will never happen again." Then I hung up, and for the first time, I felt no fear. Owning the cabin changed me in ways I didn't expect. At first, I thought it would just be about revenge, about showing them I could win. But over time, the house became something more. Every weekend I drove out there, I rebuilt pieces of myself. I painted the porch white. I planted wildflowers along the path to the lake. I filled the rooms with laughter again, not theirs, but mine. Friends came to visit. My coworkers brought their kids. We roasted marshmallows, told stories, and watched the stars. The cabin stopped being the symbol of their betrayal. It became the symbol of my survival. The town noticed too. Where my parents once bragged about their prized vacation home, now people whispered about how their daughter had taken it instead. At the grocery store, I overheard an old neighbor mutter to another, "Can you believe it? All that drama, and she ended up with the place. Good for her." I didn't smile, didn't gloat, but inside, I felt a quiet satisfaction. Because it wasn't about humiliating them anymore. It was about reclaiming what was stolen. And yet, my parents never stopped stewing. My mom still sends emails sometimes, long, rambling, guilt-drenched paragraphs about family, forgiveness, second chances. I don't reply. My dad hasn't spoken to me in months. I hear from others that he blames me for everything. That's fine. Let him. Because here's the truth. Their betrayal broke something in me. Yes. But it also built something stronger. 1. Evening, sitting on the porch of the cabin with a glass of wine, I watched the sun sink over the lake. The water shimmered gold, the crickets sang, and for the first time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt free. Free from their control. Free from their expectations. Free from the illusion that family always equals loyalty. The aftermath wasn't about their downfall anymore. It was about my rise. And as the stars filled the sky, I whispered to myself, "They took my savings, but I took my life back." It's been almost a year since I dropped those keys onto the cafe table and watched my parents' faces collapse. A year since they drained my savings, convinced I would stay silent. A year since I decided I would never be their victim again, and now every time I step into the cedar cabin, I feel something I never thought I'd feel again. Peace. The creaky floors don't remind me of their shouting matches anymore. They remind me of my resilience. The lake isn't a symbol of their selfishness. It's a reflection of my freedom. This house, their prized possession, isn't theirs anymore. It's mine, my safe place. My proof that even when people betray you, you can rise stronger than they ever imagined. I won't lie and say it didn't hurt. Their betrayal cut deeper than any wound I've ever seen in an ER. Because when strangers betray you, you expect it. But when your parents, your own flesh and blood, betray you, it feels like the ground itself gives way. But here's what I've learned. Sometimes, family isn't about who raised you. Sometimes it's about the people who respect you. Who protects your trust? Who celebrate your victories instead of stealing them? And sometimes, family is simply yourself, learning to stand tall even when you've been knocked flat. So if you're listening right now, and you've been betrayed by people who should have stood by you, hear me clearly. You are not weak for trusting. You are not foolish for loving. The shame is not yours to carry. You can take back what's yours, in your own way, in your own time. And when you do, you'll realize the same thing I did. Revenge isn't about destroying someone else's life. It's about reclaiming your own. If you've made it this far, thank you for being here with me. Tell me, have you ever had to rebuild after betrayal? What did you learn about yourself in the process? I want to hear your stories in the comments, because every time one of us shares, someone else out there feels a little less alone. And if this story touched you, please like and subscribe, not just for me, but because together we're creating a space where women can speak, heal, and rise stronger than before. This is Lindsay, signing off from Lake Lure. Stronger, wiser, unbroken.